For most people, food begins at the supermarket. A box of cereal, a chocolate bar, a bottle of cooking oil, a steak. But long before any of those products reach a shelf, they pass through a system most consumers never see: farms, grain elevators, processing plants, railways, ports, ships, commodity markets, and financial contracts. And somewhere inside that system is a company most people have never heard of: Cargill. Today, it employs more than 155,000 people across roughly 70 countries and generates more than $150 billion in annual revenue. But Cargill did not begin as a global food company. In 1865, it began with one grain warehouse. So how did a single warehouse become one of the most powerful companies in the global food system? The answer isn't one revolutionary product. It's something much harder to see: connections. In 1865, William Wallace Cargill bought a small grain warehouse in Conover, Iowa. The location mattered because it sat at the end of a railway line, connecting farmers with the wider market. That may sound insignificant today, but in the 19th century, controlling where grain was stored and how quickly it could reach buyers could be a powerful advantage. Cargill expanded through the American Midwest, and by 1885, the company controlled more than 100 grain storage structures, with capacity exceeding 1.6 million bushels. It was learning a lesson that would define the company for generations. You didn't necessarily need to grow the grain. You needed to understand where it was going, and what it would be worth when it arrived. And that changed the business completely, because commodities are different from ordinary products. A farmer can harvest wheat today, while the person who needs that wheat may buy it months later, thousands of miles away, at a price that doesn't exist yet. Between those two moments, everything can change: weather, transportation, currency, supply, demand, and prices. Someone has to absorb that uncertainty, and Cargill increasingly built a business around doing exactly that. In 1923, the company acquired Taylor & Bornick, a grain trading company with something unusually valuable for the time: its own private wire communication system. Cargill wasn't just buying grain expertise, it was buying information. The faster information moved, the faster decisions could be made. And the faster decisions could be made, the greater the opportunity to manage risk. That same principle still exists inside modern commodity trading, except today the machinery is vastly more sophisticated. Futures, options, hedging, derivatives, currency exposure, and inventory valuation all sit behind the physical movement of commodities. Cargill doesn't simply buy a commodity and hope its price rises. It operates inside a financial system designed to manage the uncertainty surrounding that commodity. And the numbers reveal just how important that financial layer has become. According to UNCTAD's analysis of major commodity traders between 2018 and 2024, mark-to-market valuation of derivatives represented, on average, about 51% of Cargill's reported revenue. That doesn't mean Cargill makes half its money by simply gambling on financial markets. It means the company has built an enormous business around managing price risk across a physical supply chain. And once you understand that, Cargill starts to look very different, because the logical next step was obvious. If you can profit from understanding one part of the journey, what happens when you control more of the journey itself? Cargill began adding pieces: animal nutrition, starches and sweeteners, chocolate, food ingredients, processing, transportation, aquaculture, and meat. And the strategy becomes visible when you look at some of its biggest acquisitions. In 2011, Cargill paid about $1.5 billion for Provimi, dramatically expanding its global animal nutrition business. In 2015, it acquired EWOS for about 1.35 billion euros, one of the world's major producers of feed for farmed fish. These were not random businesses, they were missing pieces. Cargill was moving deeper into the supply chain. Instead of simply trading agricultural commodities, it could participate in what happened before and after those commodities were traded. And sometimes, Cargill did the opposite. In 2004, it helped create Mosaic, one of the world's largest fertilizer companies, and eventually became a major shareholder before later exiting the business. That matters because Cargill's strategy was never simply to own everything forever. It was to build, acquire, restructure, and sometimes sell the pieces that mattered. Over 160 years, the company was gradually assembling something much more valuable than a collection of businesses. It was assembling a network. And that network became physical. In one of its major soybean operations, Cargill's infrastructure has included 136 country elevators, 14 processing plants, and 13 ports, supported by dozens of commercial and administrative offices. Zoom out from one commodity, and the scale becomes difficult to visualize. More than 155,000 employees, around 100,000 frontline workers, and operations spanning approximately 70 countries and 125 markets. And there is a reason this infrastructure matters. Cargill estimates that roughly 1/4 of the world's food crosses international borders. Every border creates another problem. Where will it be stored? How will it move? Who will finance it? What happens if the price changes, the ship is delayed, or the harvest fails? The more global the food system becomes, the more valuable those connections become. And this is where Cargill's power really comes from. Not necessarily from controlling a single product, but from sitting at important points between thousands of producers, processors, traders, and consumers. Its ocean transportation business has historically moved hundreds of millions of tons of cargo: grain, sugar, coal, iron ore, and other bulk commodities. The company wasn't simply trading what the world needed. It was participating in the machinery that moved those materials around the world. And that creates an uncomfortable question. When does efficiency become concentration? There is a popular story that a handful of companies simply control the world's grain. The reality is more complicated. Recent academic research estimates that the 4 largest firms account for roughly 32% of global FOB grain shipments and around 27% of CNF shipments, with 7 major firms accounting for roughly 45% of global FOB shipments. Cargill is one of those major players, but it does not control the world's grain. And that distinction matters, because the real question isn't whether one company controls everything. It's how much influence a company can gain by controlling enough of the connections. And Cargill has been asking that question for more than a century. In 1938, the company became involved in major regulatory and legal disputes surrounding commodity markets. Decades later, the same basic tension appeared again, this time in the American beef industry. Cargill and other major meatpackers have faced lawsuits alleging anti-competitive conduct, including claims involving cattle supplies, beef prices, and futures markets. Cargill has denied wrongdoing and has defended itself in the litigation. The U.S. Department of Justice also issued civil investigative demands to Cargill in 2020 and 2021 concerning the cattle and beef packing markets, and the financial stakes became substantial. Cargill has disclosed hundreds of millions of dollars in contingencies related to beef antitrust litigation, while separate settlements and agreements have involved tens of millions of dollars. The important question isn't whether every allegation is true. The important question is why this keeps happening. Because whenever a company becomes deeply embedded in a market, the same advantage that makes it efficient can also make its position controversial. And Cargill has another unusual characteristic. It is not publicly traded. There is no daily stock price and no quarterly earnings call with thousands of outside shareholders. The company remains privately held and controlled by the Cargill-Macmillan family, yet the family does not run the company directly. The last member of the family to lead Cargill was Whitney Macmillan, who left the CEO position in 1995. For decades, professional executives have operated the business while the family has maintained ownership. That creates a very different corporate structure. A company generating more than $150 billion in annual revenue, operating around the world, while remaining privately held. And that structure may have helped Cargill think differently about time, but it doesn't protect the company from the forces of the market. In fiscal 2023, Cargill generated about $177 billion in revenue. 2 years later, that number had fallen to roughly $154 billion, a difference of more than $20 billion. Commodity businesses can become enormous during favorable cycles, but when prices, margins, and volumes change, enormous businesses can suddenly become expensive to operate. In 2024, Cargill announced a restructuring that eliminated roughly 8,000 positions, about 5% of its global workforce. The company was simplifying itself. 5 major business units became 3 enterprises, while 23 business groups were reduced to 14. After 160 years of expansion, Cargill was confronting a problem of its own making: complexity. The company had spent generations adding connections. Now it had to decide which connections were worth keeping. And outside the boardroom, the same system was becoming more difficult to manage. In the United States, cattle inventories reached their lowest level in roughly 75 years. That created enormous pressure across the beef industry. At Cargill's Fort Morgan, Colorado plant, about 1,700 workers became part of a labor dispute that shut the facility down for months. Workers who had been earning a base wage of $15.35 an hour in 2018 were now earning around $23 an hour in the first year. It is a strangely small number compared with Cargill's $150 billion scale. But that's the point. A global food system ultimately depends on individual workers, individual farmers, individual animals, individual ships, and individual harvests. The larger the network becomes, the more variables it has to absorb. And Cargill cannot control all of them. It cannot control the weather, every commodity price, every government, how much cattle farmers have, every labor dispute, or every environmental conflict. What it can do is connect the pieces. And that may be the real secret behind 160 years of growth. Cargill's most important product may never have been grain, meat, chocolate, or animal feed. It may not even have been commodities. Its real product was the ability to connect the people who produce something with the people who need it, and manage everything that can go wrong in between. That explains why the company can appear in places that seem completely unrelated. A grain elevator, a chocolate factory, a cattle processing plant, a port, a shipping operation, a financial contract, a laboratory, even an artificial intelligence system analyzing agricultural data. From the outside, these look like different businesses. From Cargill's perspective, they are pieces of the same system. And that brings us back to the supermarket. The chocolate bar is visible. The cooking oil is visible. The steak is visible. The brand on the package is visible. But behind those products is an enormous infrastructure of farmers, traders, warehouses, processors, financial markets, ports and ships. Most consumers will never see it, and most will never know Cargill's name. That may be the most remarkable part of the story. A company that began with one grain warehouse became a business generating more than $150 billion a year. It employs more than 155,000 people and operates across roughly 70 countries. It participates in a food system where around 1/4 of food crosses international borders, and yet, for most people, it remains almost invisible. So how did one warehouse become a global food system giant? Not by becoming the brand on the shelf, by becoming part of everything that happens before the shelf. And perhaps that is the deeper lesson of Cargill. In modern business, power does not always belong to the company whose product everyone sees. Sometimes, it belongs to the company sitting quietly between everything else. And that is what the hidden ledger reveals, the power behind the things we think we understand,